Hello, welcome to KonnectUp. We're recording live in Atlanta, Georgia. I am Gabrielle, your host. I'm from Atlanta by way of Rome, Georgia, and I have two of our co-hosts joining us and a special guest as well.
And I'm LaFaye, and I'm from Ackworth, Georgia.
And I'm Sheila, and I'm from Cartersville, Georgia.
And I'm Erin, and I'm the special guest from Cartersville, Georgia as well.
She's our very special guest from Cartersville, Georgia. And so we are glad to have you all joining us today. And you know that we are in season 2.
Yes.
And this is our first film episode that we're having as we come back. And so we've decided to take you guys on a journey related to wellness, wholeness, and today we'll be focusing on being healed versus being whole, what that look like, what the differences are, and we'll get into that a little bit, and that will be our line of every show for this season. We're going to stay with that. We hear a lot about it.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about it, and I think it's something that's worth us addressing as far as, is there a difference at all? So we have Miss Erin here. I prior to us coming here, did like a little thing I sent out to several people asking them what did they think the difference was. So people that I admire or I talk to, I thought could give very good answers. And so you'll hear some of that as we go through, because I hadn't shared that with y'all. So we'll hear some of that as we talk about it. So we'll start with, as I always do, LaFaye, since you are always talking, what do you think are some of the difference between being healed versus being whole?
Well, I think that's a good question. And as you were talking, I was sitting here thinking, I can be healed from something. When you think about a sore, because you can be healed from it and it has the scab over and it's healed. But maybe we ain't got to the whole thing of it because it's not really whole anymore, because there's a place right there that still needs to be truly healed and truly made whole. That skin has been hurt. It has been battered. It's been like you take like a cut. And then take it, for instance, you do stitches. You put stitches in, you done healed the wound, but the wound still hasn't whole yet because it hasn't completely healed or been completely closed up. So I think that's what my difference, I think, would be, is looking at it from a place of, yes, I'm healed, but am I truly, truly over it? I've gotten past what has been done to me, but have I really been made to the feeling of being just completely on the inside of what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
So I think that was my definition. But when you look at it, and I think this is good for our listeners and our listeners, is that sometimes we think that when we are healed, we're whole. And so to come through when we got to talking about this topic, I begin to think, Lord, there's some things that I might not be completely whole from.
Yes. And so I'm gonna let y'all. I'm gonna pick it up y'all once you all get going. So that's a good point. The points you're making are good, and I think sometimes for a long time, when we say we heal, you kind of use them interchangeably. You know, and
but they are two different things.
They are two different things. They're two different things. And then the other thing that we begin to talk about, how being whole and healed. We talk about wellness a lot. We talk about self-care a lot. But I think as I thought about this, I realized that we are putting a lot of attention on the physical. And we are, not to get into a Bible study, but we're 3-part beings. We're 3-part, and so we are a spirit. We live in a body, and we do have a soul, and all those parts of us have to be taken care of. And so we are putting a lot of emphasis on, let me go to the massage. I can go there stay all day. I love it, but it doesn't heal the inner me.
Let me go to the gym.
Let me go to the
gym.
So that's another outer thing. Let us take
But
vacations.
I am so messed up on the inside.
Exactly.
Right.
So Sheila, what was your defining?
Well, of course, I got some words here that, and I looked it up. Heal means it's a person or treatment cause a wound, injury, or person to become sound or healthy again. Again. It made better, made well, get someone back to their feet, made good, mend, restore.
Right.
That's heal.
Heal.
But wholeness is to put or bring back into existence or use, to bring back, to be put again back to your original state. And as LaFay was talking, I was thinking that just like that sore you was talking about, we talked about this, having that sore until that wound is lanced, because there's so much. So once the cut is made, there's so much stuff on the inside of it,
right,
that even when the scab comes, it comes over it. But the pulse and all that stuff is still on the inside. So until you go back in,
Clean it out.
girl, until you go back
that
in
thing.
and dig around in there and allow, or put some pressure to, oh God, put some pressure to it and allow all that pulse, all that infection, all that stuff that was caused by the wound to come out, because the healing process, the wholeness cannot come until all that is done. And sometimes what does that look like? It means that we got to go back and we got to think about, or go back in our minds, how did that happen? Why did it happen?
Right.
All that stuff.
Right.
And go back sometimes to some places that we've never or don't want to go back to. And go back and think about all of that for the healing process to start.
Right.
Because I cannot just keep covering it up. Keep covering it. And that's what we do.
Yes,
and we go for years and years and years covering up stuff. And it can just be a thought. It can just come from one thought that we allowed to become festered on the inside of us and not deal with it.
Right.
And it got infected. It became a sore. And then at one point you can't touch it. Oh my God, nobody can talk about it. You better not even think it. Yes. So it's like but we have to. Because wholeness does not come until you go back and do the process, do the work. Because sometimes that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to do the work. We do not want to do the work to become whole.
We have to do the work. And I think that's what's important. And we're going to go back in. I'm going to give you a chance to give your definition of that as well, because I'm going to bring that right on back home. So I'm not going to keep saying we got stuff. And we got whatever's in a minute. We're going to talk about what some of that stuff look like that we're not dealing with. And I always say we hide in the church. We hide.
do.
Yes. We don't deal with stuff. We hide behind the banner of I'm saved. And we're saying we're whole and we're healed. And we're not. We're really not.
We're fake.
We're fake.
We're fake.
So fake.
I mean,
go ahead, Miss Ma'am. And Erin is a for real therapist, so I like to bring her in and give us some conversation.
Yes, I was like, ooh, the conversation is getting good. They're even using therapy jargon, like do the work, like all of that. So that's super important. And I was thinking just even on the way down, I was just thinking about how we try to do things to escape processes.
Right.
We try to do everything we can to circumvent the issue. So what we may see manifest as substance abuse or whatever may be just some pain from childhood, a traumatic event, and different things like that. So we see it come out in a lot of different ways. And some people use church as an escape to escape the actual issue.
Right.
So what you'll get a lot when you're dealing like in ministry and different things like that is you get a lot of people spiritually bypassing, well, we just gonna pray. Or we're just gonna do whatever. And prayer is appropriate and it's great and it's all of the things, but it's also, there's so many more steps to that. So you alluded, to the gym earlier, and actually going to the gym is good for your mental health. However, if the driving force behind that is getting over, a failed relationship, and you don't really get to the fact that, when this happened or this ended, it made me feel like I was not enough. Then it's kind of, you're going to get the dopamine high from the exercise, but eventually, you'll be back in the same place. You know what I mean? And dealing with that same thing. So to go back to what you were saying about healing versus wholeness, and we did talk about it via text, healing is perpetual. It's forever. It's until, because we're all trying to get better. We're all, trying to have peace,
Yeah.
a sound mind, if you want to get churchy, power, love, and a sound mind, and, all of those kinds of things. But that does we come up in situations, we have life that will life,
right.
Yes.
and we are left to deal with those things. So healing, I think, is ongoing.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
even when you were talking about the wound, like sometimes the wound can close, but you can have scar tissue,
right,
and it still
scar
hurts.
tissue.
Like when you touch it, time goes on,
Right.
but it still hurts. Like for example, like I lost my mom when I was 24. And it doesn't feel the same as it did, but there are some times, right. And so I think wholeness, sometimes when we think about wholeness, we think of perfection, but I just choose to see it, peace, yes, all of those things. But I choose to see it as maturity. And sometimes wholeness is saying, I still have this problem. So let me go back and work on healing that, like even in another way. So it's so many facets to it. And like even the process, what you were talking about, cleaning that out, that's called debriding. And I've worked with a lot of nurses, and we work with geriatrics, and so bed sores and different things like that. They have to give medication beforehand before they go in to clean that out. Yeah. Absolutely. And so when you're talking about trauma and different things that have been in your life, it was the one time somebody called you fat when you were 5, and it took root. And so then
you became anorexic.
Yes, absolutely.
Now you got a whole nother
issue.
A whole nother issue when, and you don't know when you're 5 that person is projecting some kind of insecurity. They might not like your mama and just want to say something ugly to you or whatever the case, but you don't know that. And so sometimes that's when we have what's called like arrested development. Yeah. So that fight still, when they're in the gym exercising obsessively, somebody told them it comes from a place of I'm not good enough, and I need to be this certain way, and so that's sometimes how it shows up.
We get those things like bulimia or anorexia,
and you got to figure out where
it's coming from. Because you can go to clinics to get healed from that stuff, but until you get to the root of it, you won't be whole.
Because we see that a lot too.
You'll fall right back into it.
Relapse.
Relapse, and you have to go get the help that you need in order to overcome those type of situations.
For sure. So, and understanding that therapists and this modality is an extension of God's hand. It's not God.
But listen,
it's an extension.
What about us? Because all 4 of us grew up in the church, right? What about this? Because you are a therapist for real. But back in the day, nobody was saying go get no help. Right. Oh God, that was a disgrace. Whatever happened in the house, stay in the house. You better not tell nobody. You better not say nothing. You better not talk about it outside this house. Right. And so I think that was a disservice to us.
Yes.
Even as a people, because we needed help.
Yeah. We're such a traumatized group of people. And so you have and that even plays a part in our psyche and how we show up in the world. And that secretive stuff, that's because they had to keep a lot of secrets to stay alive. You know what I mean?
Gotta go
and
back
things like that.
And you gotta take into account of our history too. That was a time when that wasn't available to us either. And part of the way that we dealt with trauma was through church. And so some of us expressed that through. You do get a relief when we're in there and we dance.
Absolutely.
All that kind of stuff. It does come, but now we are learning. And like you said, a part of maturity is continuing to grow and find out what else needs to be done. And I think that's where we are.
Too, like, this is what I think that the world in general like struggles with, like polarity. Like it's either this or it's either this, and that's not it.
No, it is a gray area.
Like some people get so educated and they know, but don't forget your foundation and where that's all we could do at the time. Right. Like what you
and that,
I
mean,
it's not an either or, it's a both and.
It's a both and. Right. And so that for me, coming to my definition, because y'all gonna took over, is that I think for me, healing, and I think of it like a pie. And so there are pieces of, you got the emotional, you got the spiritual, you have your physical, you got all these pieces, and there are so many pieces of healing that come in each one of those parts that's connected to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So physically, there are numerous things that we can be healed from. Spiritually, there are numerous things that we can be healed from. Our soul, oh my God, there are numerous things that we can be healed from. That's not just one thing. I think the thing that makes us whole, that is even in the middle of all of that, is that we realize, first of all, you got to realize that you need the help.
Yeah.
Which is what makes us
That's
draw.
number one.
You know, I don't turn this into church, but I just don't think you can be whole without Christ. And that's the thing that draws us closer to Him. When I realize my weaknesses, then I know what I got to do to get the help that I need. I think it's only when we begin to think we're strong within ourselves that we don't reach out for what it is that we need. And so, with that being said, I think for me, the wholeness part comes in when we begin to talk about an inner peace. That no matter what my situation is,
I have peace.
no matter what it looks like, I can still find a place that offers me a peace of mind, an inner peace, that everything around me could be in turmoil. But I find a place of peace to me speaks to being in a place of wholeness, that I still know that all what I need comes from one source and that I can still find peace. I was sharing with Sheila earlier, and we were talking, I was saying that one of the things that began to come to me, that's how, I wake up in my sleep with all this stuff. And so one of the things that I felt was coming was that take a wound, if you got cut with a knife, and that everybody, depending on what caused the wound, would depend on how you treat it.
Yes, that's true.
So if I got cut with just a regular blade, then you're going to treat that one way.
Yeah.
If I got cut with a rustic blade, you're
You're
going to treat that another way.
Sure. Absolutely.
So we have been trying to treat all of our trauma the same way. And I think that as part of our history, we need to go back and learn our history and understand where some of that trauma is coming from. Some things are, I'm going to say, genetic. They came down your line.
It is.
I deal with foster care. So one of the things I was sharing with her too is that dealing with the youth that we deal with, when I deal with a young lady who was raped by her dad, her brother, and birthed a child, versus a young lady that was raped by a stranger, how we deal with that trauma
is totally different.
Right. My God.
So we got to figure out how to deal with the traumas that we are experiencing. And they show up in anxiety, fear, frustration, the eating disorders. That they show up in hate, jealousy,
perfectionism.
Perfectionism.
Let's talk about the positive ways that it can show up. And
it look positive.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a maladaptive coping skill, but it appears positive because people are getting results from your perfectionism. But really what that comes from too is I'm not good enough, so I have to be perfect in every way. Even I think about, particularly with girls, that struggle with that a lot, high performing girls and their moms that want them to be better or whatever the case, and the push that they experience and how you internalize that. And you think that being human and being flawed is a failure when it is actually natural to do those things. And so you see it in a lot, overperformance, just when people go to college, Ivy League colleges and all these places, most serious manifestations of mental illness usually occur between 18 and 24.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And so, there are people that go to these schools and they lose their minds because of the pressure and because of the stress. And oh my gosh, I'm making my first beat ever in my life. And they literally think that this is the end of the world. And different things like that. And so I tell people all the time, check on your good kid, the one that doesn't really, that doesn't appear to have a lot of needs and they're high performing, they make good grades, they don't really act out or whatever the case. And chances are what has happened, they've learned very early, well, if I act good, then that keeps balance, because that's how kids think. Kids think things happen because of them. That's why young children, when parents divorce, they'll think sometimes that it's their fault. Right. So you got this situation where you're thinking, oh, this is on me. And you also learn how to not express your needs. So that can help you to end up in relationships with partners who are not emotionally available, because they're not going to meet your needs anyway. And you're already kind of used to that because that's how you grew up. Even though you're the high performer, even though you're the good kid. And so the family is dealing with maybe the child that acts out more or whatever the case, and they're getting lost in the shuffle. So in that too, you don't really develop a voice.
Right.
And all of those things can, I tell people all the time, and I was like, y'all think I'm lying to you. And that's what I'll tell my clients too. You know, you think that your programming and how you came up did not affect you, but it shows up in you.
It shows up in every day. I'm gonna throw my own self. I'm gonna throw my own self in the pot. You know, I always do that because I like to talk about stuff that's going on for me. So one thing I know for me personally was that I would be considered that overperforming child. Like, I'm gonna get it right. I'm going to strive for perfection. I can become very upset if something doesn't go off right, which is why now it's so important for me to spend my time, my quiet time, my meditation, because I get anxious very quickly. And so even as far as even yesterday, it happened yesterday, and Chris was like, go to sleep. Like, you need to just
take a nap.
Just go to sleep.
Like with your babies.
He said to me, because you're stressing me, like, go to sleep. Because I got anxious, really, I will get anxious really quickly because I like for things to flow a certain way. But I know, as we talked about, even, you know, saying history and learning, I know for going back and growing up in a home where I didn't have to be given much attention because I was doing everything. I did my own stuff, you know.
And that's what we say. I didn't need it.
We say we
but
didn't
we
need
teach
it.
ourselves not to need it all the time. So that's how you can get also partners that will say, I didn't need all that growing up. No, just you didn't get it.
I didn't
so
get
you
it.
taught yourself how to adapt to not
teach
getting it.
yourself how to survive.
Correct.
Yeah.
You go in survival mode is what you do.
Absolutely.
I know I did.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Because I just feel like I wouldn't have made it. You know what I'm saying? That I feel like I had to do that. But it looks like I'm okay, but I'm not okay.
You're not okay.
You know, so if there's a part of us, if we're really seeking to be whole and well, then I've got to be able to admit that I'm in a space and I'm not okay. Although I look okay.
I think that we should go back even further. And the reason why I say that is because we just got back from Washington, D.C., and we went to the civil rights.
Oh, yeah.
And down, when you go, it's made like a slave ship. And at the top, it has all this glorious thing. But the deeper you go down into it, and you get down in the bottom, it's talking about slavery.
That gotta be chill.
Yeah.
Like just
because you start out at this beautiful ship up top.
Oh, yeah.
But then the further you go down, it's bringing our experience to reality.
Right.
And so you get down at the very bottom of it, and then it starts talking about slavery.
Right.
Then it goes, and then when you're walking through it, you hear and you see how sometimes we wonder, where did our struggle really begin? And when you go, the first thing that I noticed was that they talked about, they put all of us together. Because Africa was a place and they put all of us together, but we all was different people. We came from different tribes and different so we always say, well, I wonder why we don't have that community. Well, when we was brought together, we wasn't a community.
Right.
They just threw us all together and they made us be together. And so me and Sheila don't speak the same language. Me and Aaron don't speak the same language. Me and Tammy don't speak the same language. Me and Gabrielle don't speak the same language. So then we had to learn, if I want my group to survive, I got to turn on Aaron's group. If Aaron want her group to survive, she got to turn on Gabrielle. So this is something that has been embedded in the African American community from the beginning. And so we wonder why they always call us crabs in a barrel, because that's how they programmed us. And then too, when you think about it, they were showing how some of the and I said, well, something had to happen because everybody that's in Africa still is over there. Some blacks. Well, we had our own people selling. They would get people from Aaron's tribe and they would sell them to get different things. So we need to go back, and I know we always want to say we want to blame different ones, but we need to go back as a collective group and say, Lord, we lay this down at your feet. We need for you to heal us and make us whole from the beginning of time.
And he's got to teach us how to do that.
Because when we were walking through that, I was thinking about that. I was like, so that's why we like we are. Why we say we can't come together. Well, I might not have been a part of this. And so all through time, it has been embedded in us. If we wasn't light enough, the light ones got to go inside, the dark ones had to go in the field.
Yeah.
You know, so then they still brought that separation between us.
Right.
You know, and so that, like I said, we need to go back and
The
put
history of
that
it.
down before God and say, God, here we are as a people. You know, we know we spoke all and put it all out there. Like you say, get healed. Heal it the way that it needs to be
The
healed.
way that it has to be. I'm not,
healed.
and I'm saying that to say because we can't have wholeness. I don't think we can have wholeness without Christ. But
Yes.
what I don't want us to do is just go back and say we're gonna put it on the altar because we good at church stuff.
Yes.
But really not dealing with the stuff. And so I think we have to go back and actually deal with the history of certain things. That's why they can go back generations.
Cain and
Generations.
Abel. If you
Cain and
have
Abel.
all of those things, and that goes back to what I said even about families. Early programming influences generations.
Yes.
I mean, like here we still struggle, you know, with those same things, and it's so many things. It's like we can never fight the other oppression that's against us all because there's so much infighting.
So there's so much
and the need to assimilate or not assimilate, and who's the seller. I mean, it's even with Dr. King and Malcolm X, like they were fighting for the same thing, and they actually kind of got on the same page.
They kind of,
you know, toward the end. But that only comes with conversation, with relationship, and getting to know people. Like same thing, you know, with our white counterparts. Like we have to have a conversation to say, like, do you not think it was weird that y'all had what's called picnics and like watch lynchings?
Right.
But we're violent.
But we're violent. But
like we're more predisposed to that. I mean, and just really having those conversations and really talking about it and to get healing. There's a book that I read when I started like doing some coaching work called Crucial Conversations, and that's got to be had.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way around that. And I think when people are in the healing process, in the therapeutic process, even working out, it's certain parts that I don't want to do this plank or I don't want to do these knee tucks. It hurts.
I don't even just want to get on the treadmill. I don't want nothing.
So my hip flexors are engaging and it's hurting the top of my hips when I do this exercise.
You said a word that I want to touch, and that's the core. The core of things. If your core, even in physical, is facts.
Everything is weak.
You have no mobility.
You
can't go over and tie your shoe. Like all of those kinds of things. And it's so
we have to
important.
Get to the core of it. And even if we not to go to the church, but we talk about
we gonna keep going.
We're gonna keep going.
I'm going to say I'm not going to have a whole
Right.
I know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so, but we talk about putting on the whole armor. One of the things it talks about is girding up, which is your core. So we have to be able to focus on that. And so that's why we're saying we've got to go back history-wise. We've got to go back to the core of this thing.
Yes.
And then we can move forward. And that's not to say that some of us have not. That's not to say that some of us are not moving forward. We're trying to find our way to get this thing done because I want to be whole.
I do. Yeah.
And I know I still have anxious moments I just talked about yesterday.
I do too.
I have thoughts that just out this world sometimes.
I just want everybody to understand too, like the gym part keeps coming back in because trauma affects your whole body. Like the pain or the tears that maybe you didn't cry on certain situations, they're still in there. That's why when you actually start the process of healing,
you did, but there's so much more.
Yeah, exactly.
Once
and
you cried about that,
like,
it brought up something
else. There's actual work called somatic work that I want to start studying to know about like trauma release in your hips.
Yes.
And why is it in my jaw? And why is it in the top of my shoulders? And why, when some people are stressed, do they gain weight and get moon face like when you take prednisone? Because there's cortisol in your face. And so there's a very physical thing that goes on as well. So it's got to be like a multifaceted approach.
But why all of us on high blood pressure medicines? Why?
Yeah,
Because
it's all
trauma
these
is stuff that we're not dealing with. High blood pressure is just stress that you're not dealing with.
When
it
they test your
shows
heart, it's called a stress test.
It's called a stress test.
So
with your heart,
for
stress
a
test.
reason.
But I think that's just so.
It's
There's
crazy.
so much,
Yes.
which is why I'm saying this thing about wellness and us becoming whole is so vast, you know, and there's so many pieces that we will have to touch on